This is Maybach Vundi Channel, the home of understanding the world daily.
Oh, you've all had the news and seen the breaking news that the most outstanding rescue was carried out by the U.S. military in Iran to, get to one of their pilots who had, gone through downing of his jet. There were two pilots. One was rescued immediately, and the other one was involved in a serious rescue mission for the military, U.S. military, to get him. Now, we've found details that you've not had anywhere else, and you're going to check them in a second. But I just wanted to make an intro to this video and just mention how I found it interesting for myself because, first of all, you have to understand the U.S. military functions on intelligence. That is their fuel. And without intelligence, the U.S. military just becomes stale. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to operate until you give them tangible, evidential intelligence. Then they move swiftly. So it seemed like for a few weeks they had come to that point where they had no new intelligence on the Iranian front. So their mission there had stalled, and you could hear Trump whining on the news every day, talking about why is this war not ending? I don't know who I'm dealing with, who is running Iran, and blah, blah, blah. And this was just an indicator that their intelligence well had run out, and they were not getting new information. Which made me think the downing of this jet was because they were trying to force the hand of Iranians to actually bring out new information that they can use as intelligence. And then, so when the plane was downed by the Iranians, something that, by the way, is not even possible in a normal situation, then they were forced to show their hand, and you saw what happened. Trump would later post a video showing him, showing the U.S. military blowing up what Trump called many Iranian military leaders. Basically, because when they came out trying to capture the U.S. military pilot, they had been forced to show their hand. So before, they were not communicating. They would probably use some archaic ways of communication so that they're not giving out much information of where their leaders were or who were giving out instructions on what to do during this vital time when America was trying to get new information. So now they were forced to basically show their hand, and for some reason they couldn't manage this pilot thing without having to communicate. And you can rest assured that America was concurrently running two missions. One, to get to their pilot, and the other one, to get any sort of intelligence on any communication that would have been released or would have happened during this terrible attempt by the Iranians to capture the U.S. military pilot. And it seemed like it worked, because then Trump was very quick to post this video of the U.S. military then immediately after they rescued their pilot, restarting the blowing up of different Iranian targets, and also claiming quick victory about getting many Iranian military leaders during this most recent attempt, which then makes me wonder whether this wasn't the script in the first place. Because, but then when I went in to do the research on this video, I realized that probably you can give them benefit of the doubt, because the situation they have been faced with since the start of this war is that they had the U.S. military has had to move these planes of war through if you like, front lines of Iranian military setups. So the thing is, the US military jets are equipped to evade any type of fire. And so they can very easily maneuver any type of exchanges by any sort of enemy weapons. And so they managed to do this by ensuring that they put into their designs of their jets systems that help them to actually evade actual real-time fire from enemy lines. And so when I heard that this jet was downed by Iranians, I was like, what's happening? How did that happen? So that had me doubting that whether maybe something was under plans by the US, maybe to create a scenario where then they force the hand of Iranians and get new intelligence. I still believe this was what happened, but I have my reserves to give them a benefit of the doubt. But how that pilot carried himself, by how he moved during this period of him trying to bring out the hand of Iranians, is quite interesting. Anyway, so let me leave you watch this video, and let me know what you think on the comments down below, because it's a very interesting video and the research is amazing. And you get to know details that probably you haven't had anywhere else. Please remember to leave a like, comment, share, subscribe to us, share this video with your friends, and thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
By February 2026, the Middle East had fractured into a high-intensity war known as Operation Epic Fury. The United States and Israel had launched a systematic air campaign, methodically dismantling Iran's military logistics and nuclear weaponization infrastructure, like the Bushehr facility. To survive over Iranian airspace, American pilots had to adjust their tactics. They dropped down into the valleys to fly under the wide umbrella of high-altitude surface-to-air missiles. But this low-level flying exposed these highly advanced jets to dense clusters of short-range anti-aircraft fire. On the morning of April 3rd, a two-person crew throttled up their F-15E Strike Eagle from a base in Jordan. The Strike Eagle is a dual-role fighter designed for deep strike missions against heavily defended targets, requiring both a pilot to fly and a weapons systems officer in the backseat to manage the complex targeting and electronic warfare suites. Deep over the Zagros Mountains, their long-altitude approach finally caught up with them. Iranian air defenses cut through the jet's electronic countermeasures. The incoming fire physically shredded the F-15E's flight control surfaces and propulsion systems, sending the aircraft into a fatal dive. For the first 5 weeks of the war, the U.S. military had projected an image of absolute air superiority, sustaining 0 losses to enemy fire. This single shoot-down ended that streak, marking the first time a manned U.S. fighter had been brought down by an adversary in over 2 decades. With the aircraft failing, the crew pulled the ejection handles. In a dual-seat fighter, the ejection seats fire with a staggered, fractional timing delay, so the crew members don't collide in midair. But when you eject at high speeds over unpredictable mountain winds, that tiny fraction of a second means the pilot and the weapons systems officer land miles apart on the ground. Within hours, the U.S. launched a massive daylight recovery operation. Dedicated search and rescue helicopters successfully reached and extracted the pilot, but they took direct small arms fire from Iranian ground troops and local militias, injuring American personnel on board. Getting that pilot out required heavy suppressing fire from above. An A-10 Warthog providing close air support absorbed massive volumes of incoming anti-aircraft fire while protecting the rescue helicopters. The A-10 was so critically damaged that the pilot had to nurse it out to the Strait of Hormuz before ejecting and losing the aircraft. In a matter of hours, the United States had lost 2 premier combat aircraft to Iranian defenses. Worse, the search for the second crew member had to be suspended. An American colonel, alone and injured, was now entirely isolated deep in hostile territory as the Iranian military mobilized to hunt him down. The weapons systems officer touched down in the rugged, rocky folds of the Zagros Mountains. Armed with only a handgun and basic survival rations, he made a counterintuitive decision. Instead of hiding in the valleys, which are easily accessible to motorized enemy patrols, he hiked up a sheer 7,000-foot mountain ridgeline. This altitude provided 3 advantages. First, cold rock hid his thermal signature from drones. Second, tracking convoys below allowed him to freeze. Finally, the unobstructed peak let him transmit encrypted GPS bursts to U.S. intelligence without being geolocated. The colonel survived for nearly 48 hours out in the open. His precise execution of survival, evasion, resistance, and escape protocols proves that individual tactical discipline and physical endurance are just as vital to survival as the advanced technology in the cockpit. Aware of the immense propaganda value of capturing an American officer alive, the Iranian regime interrupted state television broadcasts to offer nomadic tribesmen a $60,000 bounty to hunt down the pilot, flooding the mountains with armed civilians. Knowing they couldn't just fly in blindly, the CIA launched a massive electronic spoofing campaign. They injected false communication signatures and misleading radar returns into Iranian surveillance networks, creating the digital illusion that U.S. forces had already rescued the airman and were driving him toward the border in a ground convoy. This cyber deception pulled significant Iranian units away from the actual crash site, buying time for a kinetic response. Operating from an improvised dirt airstrip deep inside the Iranian desert, a task force of over 200 special operations personnel launched a daring night infiltration aboard a fleet of tactical helicopters. As Navy SEAL Team 6 scaled the mountain to reach the colonel's 7,000-foot hideout, the cyber deception wore off. The physical noise of the approaching helicopters drew encroaching Iranian infantry directly to the extraction zone. The SEALs were forced into a chaotic, close-quarters gunfight, fighting their way up the incline to establish a 360-degree defensive perimeter around the wounded airmen. Heavily outnumbered, the SEALs called in overwhelming overhead firepower. High-altitude MQ-9 Reaper drones and fast-moving fighter jets rained targeted missile strikes and devastating strafing fire onto the advancing Iranian convoys, stalling their ascent and physically isolating the objective area. The successful recovery relied on the tight synchronization of digital and physical force. Without the CIA's radar spoofing to divert Iranian units, or the unyielding aerial bombardment to shield the SEALs, the colonel would have been captured. The SEALs safely evacuated the colonel down the mountain and flew back to their improvised desert staging area. But as the heavily loaded MC-130J transport planes attempted to maneuver for takeoff, their immense weight caused them to sink entirely into the deep, shifting sands of a runway, immobilizing the extraction fleet. This logistical disaster immediately mirrored one of the darkest moments in U.S. military history, the 1980 Operation Eagle Claw hostage rescue. In that same desert region, mechanical failures and sandstorms crippled the extraction, resulting in 8 dead service members and a total mission collapse. Stranded with Iranian reinforcements on the way, task force commanders made a brutal calculation. They ordered a secondary extraction force from regional bases, but they couldn't just leave their immobilized aircraft behind. Leaving highly classified avionics, specialized radar, and cryptographic gear intact for foreign adversaries to reverse engineer would be an unacceptable intelligence failure. Following the strict doctrine of asset denial, explosive ordnance disposal teams rigged the trapped MC-130Js and damaged helicopters with high explosives. As the rescue team boarded the secondary transports, they completely detonated their own fleet, reducing the advanced airframes to burning husks on the desert floor. Military commanders deliberately vaporized over $300 million of their own premier hardware. They absorbed an incredible financial loss simply to ensure that their enemies gained zero technological advantage from the operation. The secondary extraction aircraft successfully lifted off, navigating back through hostile airspace to safely deliver the rescued colonel and the entire task force to Kuwait. Astonishingly, despite the fierce gunfight and the destruction of multiple aircraft, the United States suffered absolutely zero personnel casualties during the ground rescue phase. By the next morning, a fierce information war erupted. President Donald Trump took to social media to declare an absolute victory. The administration framed the operation as a display of military tenacity, proving an uncompromising commitment to bringing its warfighters home. The Iranian government pushed a sharply divergent narrative. They deployed camera crews to the abandoned desert airstrip, broadcasting continuous footage of the charred American aircraft to their citizens. They aggressively claimed that their air defenses had shot down the extraction fleet, weaponizing the visual destruction to bolster domestic morale. Following the successful recovery, the U.S. rapidly escalated the conflict. The White House issued aggressive deadlines, demanding Iran reopen the Strait of Hormuz, explicitly outlining a schedule to destroy civilian bridges and power plants. Meanwhile, the systematic bombing runs across the Iranian plateau resumed without hesitation. The shoot-down of the Strike Eagle highlights the inherent fragility of even the most advanced war machines in modern contested airspace. But the scale of the response, the intentional destruction of a $300 million fleet to save a single officer, demonstrates a military's willingness to expend massive material wealth to maintain the integrity of its personnel.
This is Maybach Vundi Channel, the home of understanding the world daily.
Let's go. I was on a low tide, you put up like sunrise. Now my whole mood changed, got me seeing new skies. DJ spin that truth, let the bassline testify.